Hey, we're gonna do well together. How are you going, babe? Good. Love the colors.
Let's see, I'm going to switch headphones too, so
Okay.
there's you can hear the people talking behind me, I bet.
Yeah, is it UMEA? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Let me make sure I switch that over here. Speaker.
And so we're back down right now. If she doesn't change her mind.
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
I almost like the 21st or the 24th.
Anybody? Can you hear me?
Maybe we can talk about it this afternoon. But I don't know. Everybody else is available on the 13th.
I can, Eric. Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello.
Because she wanted to push Matt off and do the 10. You're not available. You have to be there.
Well, and here's the
You're going
thing.
to be the trainer and the.
And also too, I think it's great to have kids involved, but if we also need to, I've never had kids.
Okay, super.
And you lose some of your flexibility with that because you do get a little bit more because Taylor is homeschooled. If Matt can't make it, we can maybe talk to Matt and see if we can do something more during the day.
Yeah, that's what we have.
I'm going to switch my mics and see if you can hear me if I do this. Never mind, that didn't work. This mic and this headphone, and I'll probably mute my mic here in just a little bit.
She is going to communicate.
If there's not.
Okay, Steve, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Eric.
Let me switch mics or headphones real quick. There we go. Nope.
Sounds like quite a party where Mr. Jackson is this morning.
Okay, Steve, I'm back. The meeting's about to start. Are you good if I cut out?
I am. Anything that you would like to say before we go ahead and jump in?
Absolutely. Let me move to a corner. So welcome everybody. I'm sure there's going to be more people coming on as usual. But yes, today we have Steve Henness, and he's going to talk about 4-H civic service and leadership. This is being recorded, so it will be available later for viewing. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
All right. Thank you, Eric, and good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you this morning. It's a busy day in the 4-H world, I'm sure, for all of us, and an awesome time of year as we're moving into, I know, groups getting together and some state events and contests and so forth. But thank you for taking some time to come out and talk about civic engagement this morning. I know Eric is at I think it's a UMEA meeting just near campus. And here in the 4-H Center, we're having a budget meeting with the 4-H Foundation. So some great stuff. And as we go through the session today, I would really welcome this being more informal and interactive. I've built in some questions and some things that I would love to hear from you on. What we have in store is just kind of a quick little discussion and setup about civic engagement in 4-H. And but the centerpiece is really a new resource tool for 4-H clubs and 4-H groups that we've been working on, that we wanted to now make available and give you an opportunity to hopefully share that with your leaders and to give it a try. It's not a finalized or finished product at this point, but with your great help, we anticipate it can start to get some use now and then be ready for sure for the next club year. But in addition to that, also to have some discussion about just civic engagement resources for your programs, topics that you're interested in within this mission area, and just possible ways that we can learn from each other and just excel. So again, thanks for linking in this morning. As you can probably hear, I've got that voice. I've got that frog in the throat that has camped out and has decided not to leave. I kind of feel stuffed up like a Christmas goose, but I've got coffee here. I'm sipping on Emergency, and we're going to do our best. Hopefully the voice will hold out here for the session, but I would guess we'll probably be wrapped up within the hour. But definitely know this time is for you all. And let's make the most of it and have some fun together. What do you say? So I'm sharing the slides, and I'm going to go back and forth a little bit between the slides and the toolkit, and then of course our Zoom screens. But I do want to catch comments and questions that you have along the way. So hopefully everybody is seeing the first slide, just a title slide there. And we will go ahead and move into the chat here. And if you're like me, spend a little bit of time on Facebook and social media. And something that's been popping up recently are some Venn diagrams, such as this one, that are a bit humorous and just kind of lighten up the moment. And so if you've seen this one, maybe not yet, but this is someone's attempt probably to describe their life and how they feel a part of the time. You've got things I'm good at in one circle. You've got those things that are useful in another circle, and then those things that I like in another circle, and never shall the three meet. And it seems like sometimes that's the state of things as we're going through life. But We want to talk about actually those things today as we think about 4-Hers that are in our programs, whether it's our traditional clubs, our after-school or in-school programs, spin clubs, new ways that we're beginning to engage. And I think this Venn diagram really kind of set the stage for talking about skills and etiquette, which is on topic today. And you know, maybe some of the young people in our programs, this is the state of things for them. I recall, I think, as a young person, again, trying to find the way, trying to you know, understand who I was, what I was able to do, and how that might be meaningful or valuable in that larger world. So, so we want to consider that 4-H, of course, is this amazing opportunity to discover who we are, and also skills that are relevant for young people both today but also in the future. And on that note, so I'm going to open it up to you all. If you can use the chat pod here to share a few thoughts with us. Often we hear this question, I think sometimes even among older youth or adults or you know, people at any stage of life. It's like, hey, I learned that in 4-H. And then there's usually a story that accompanies that. So I just open it up. If you've got an example of maybe someone you've heard who said that, what would be some things that people typically say they have learned in 4-H? And so I'll try to move to the chat pod and see what you might be sharing here. But go ahead and, if you would, type in one example, maybe two examples from your own experiences. Try to get the chat pod out here so I can see it. There we go. I might have to just, there we are. Yeah, okay. So Debbie's saying public speaking, judging skills, absolutely. There might be things like parliamentary procedure. I think when we interact with legislators, that will often come up, that they first picked up on that process, maybe in a 4-H club. And it could be, of course, more technical skills like welding or how to bake a cake, understanding the parts of a computer. So lots of skill building opportunities, of course, that 4-H projects offer. And of course, today we're interested in looking at this from the lens of civic engagement and what are those skills in 4-H. Let's see if I can click back. There we go. And then also, we want to talk a little bit about the etiquette and what that means. What do 4-Hers want to know in order to put their best foot forward in public? Say, for instance, when meeting an important leader. And so if you've got maybe an example or two of etiquette when it comes to our 4-Hers, what might those things include? I know from groups that I've worked with, sometimes it's how to tie a tie. And it's always fun to see when a group is together who's got that tie-tying skill that they can teach others so that they are ready for formal dress. Another fun example, and again, feel free to share some thoughts in the chat pod, but another fun example came from Teen Conference a few years ago, where workshops were provided to all the participants on formal dinner etiquette. And then, of course, the 4-Hers got to try out those skills at the Teen Conference dinner. And one young man in particular, who from the urban region, I recall was so excited about his new skills and knowing what each utensil was for, and also what you do with your elbows and what you don't do with your elbows, that he went around the entire room there, table to table, almost 4-Her to 4-Her, to give a tip or maybe say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, you should be doing that. So there's often a lot of excitement that we see, right? As young people learn some things that will help them navigate life and, you know, make connections to things that they want to know more about. So just want to see perhaps if there are any chats that you have or examples of etiquette. But feel free to, again, share as you think of them. But let's go ahead and go forward here. There we go. to consider this in terms of civic engagement. We're going to break civic engagement down just a little bit more in just a moment before we take a look at this resource. But we think about civic engagement within 4-H. What might be some things that we hope every 4-H member picks up or learns by doing? What would be, that ideal 4-H experience that every young person comes away with? I think that's a useful topic, especially as we're thinking about how we reach new audiences, youth and families that are not familiar with 4-H, and what the value is that we bring. And while there is so much difference, of course, in programs, which is the wonderful diversity that 4-H is, there is certainly some standardized things that we, again, hope every young person will be able to benefit from. And so as we talk about civic engagement, perhaps these are in terms of how that young person leads or contributes to their local club or their spin club. It maybe is how they think about their community or how they are able to act in their community, whether it's giving back or working on a specific issue that they know is going to lead to betterment or change. Also, how they think about and relate to the state of Missouri. And of course, within Extension, we've had a huge emphasis on all things Missouri to kind of refocus on the citizens, the specific issues and needs that are here, and how we're meeting those through 4-H and through Extension. So how perhaps can our young people think about and relate to the state of Missouri, and hopefully, think about this as their home for the future. I know there are a lot of discussions about from communities wanting to retain young people and to not see that talent all go away somewhere else, or to attract back young people once they've reached that point where they're ready to settle down. And then, of course, we can't leave out also the world or those global issues that we hear more about. And how what we do and how what young people can do, even as an individual, can make a big difference, even on a global scale. So just kind of setting up our discussion for this morning, to think about skills, to think about etiquette, and to think about civic engagement and kind of what those ideal things are for each young person. And of course, the 4-H way is learning by doing. I found this pyramid, the learning pyramid, from National Training Laboratories, is kind of perhaps a slightly new look on why learning by doing or experiential learning is so powerful. And you can see how they summarize it, that lecture kind of format, what you retain from that is maybe only about 5%. But then as you go further down the triangle, and certainly demonstrations are something we use a lot in 4-H, that certainly enhances retention quite a bit. Going down further, that actual learning by doing or practicing, 75%. But take a look at the bottom, that purple layer at the bottom. And we know this, I think, right? Intuitively or from our own experiences as well as observing others, if we are given a chance to teach others or to help make connections to immediate use in learning, the retention rate is 90%. And so I think that was really significant as we were looking at trying to put together a resource related to civic skills and etiquette. And I think also perhaps something for all of us to think about as we're designing programs, and are there any ways that we can build in opportunities for our 4-H members to teach each other, to teach adults, to teach community leaders, and even to teach us as 4-H professionals, that really flips the classroom, or it flips the program and becomes so empowering for them. So hopefully you'll see the value in that in regard to how we tried to build it in this resource that we're going to take a look at. Okay, I see that we've got, okay, several slides back. Gotcha. So are we seeing the learning by doing screen now? Folks, could somebody let me know? Okay, and that's April.
I see 4-H spin and civic engagement.
Okay, interesting. All right. Well, let's try this. Let's try it again. We'll do a share. Thank you for letting us know. We don't want to get too far ahead here. Okay, how about that? Did that make a difference? This should be learning by doing pyramid slide. Excellent. And I'll hold on that for just a moment or two so that you can kind of take a glance. We'll be coming back to some of these things. And of course, Zoom is being recorded and slides will be available for reference later. Appreciate Eric setting up the opportunity. Okay, so a couple questions too, I think, to address is what are youth interested in learning how to do in this area of civic engagement that's also fun, educational, and relevant, right? The fun aspect is so huge, especially given how scheduled our young people are these days through school, extracurricular activities, sports, etc. The fun factor really has to be, I think, a part of our conversation in how programs are designed and how they're delivered. And I think then in terms of the skills we hope that they take away, how can we perhaps package those in a way that delivers or provides something that is perhaps a little bit rare, just to up the fun, as it were. And I know so many of you are so gifted and experienced at that, whether it's working with camp counselors on summer camp programs or team building activities and initiatives. And so I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but again, just a way to come at this hopefully from a foundational level. And then that other question, what are adults able and ready to coach and facilitate young people in learning? And we're doing some work in trying to relook at our communities from an asset base and to think about adults that maybe 4-H is not currently engaged or worked with, or maybe partners out there that are new. I know I recently had a conversation with a friend here who works for an organization that supports families who adopt, and they have a pretty incredible gathering of young people and families once a month at the recreation center, and we're looking at enrichment opportunities. They thought of 4-H, and it just again include me into, wow, there may be some audiences out there and maybe some adults that Extension 4-H hasn't worked with. And I know, of course, that looks different, community by community. But the big question is, what adults can we tap and find those talents that will make a difference for our young people. So based on that, let's just briefly touch upon civic engagement and kind of how it fits into 4-H, and then how it breaks down. Admittedly, this is a term gets used a lot, gets thrown around a lot, and there are a lot of different sort of nuances to it. Certainly, I think we're all familiar with the 3 different National 4-H headquarters mission areas. And that were in the original legislation for a cooperative extension system. We got agri-science and STEM, we've got healthy living, and then there is this civic engagement. And a few years ago, a work group brought together by National 4-H, made up of 4-H professionals from different states, relooked at kind of the guiding document for 4-H civic engagement. And actually the term has changed. So I think some of you can attest to that. It had been citizenship really for years and years. But just a few years ago, there was sort of a formal adoption of civic engagement as the new title. And we've sort of been seeing that, on national 4-H websites and et cetera. And it's, of course, kind of also made its way into our language. But what I wanted to point out today is really just what those 4 pillars of civic engagement are, how they've been defined and framed by our federal partner in National 4-H, and then how that perhaps provides some framework for how we think about and do civic engagement here. So that first pillar, and we've got a photo here of the National 4-H Center, and coincidentally, there's 4 pillars or columns there. But that first pillar is that leadership and personal development that, of course, is so strong and built into everything that we do. And character education, helping young people understand the influence that they can have as they're in those roles, that's all packed in to that leadership pillar. And then we've got civic education. And of course, this is more how government is structured, how the government process works, how decisions get made, and certainly how young people as well as adults can influence or affect or be a part of that, whether it's voting, whether it is just being a voice, sitting on a board or council, but really understanding how to advocate for the things that we're really interested in. And then civic engagement is a third pillar there, which really is slightly different from the others in that it focuses on change and moving the needle, which I think is a phrase we've been hearing. That change can be on really any issue or topic that a person is passionate about. It could be hunger and food security. So if it's the 4-H Feeding Missouri campaign that has started, a young person working on that issue, trying to rally their club and do something, then they're really doing civic engagement. And especially if they're focused on changing something in the status quo. It might be, setting up a new program. It might be actually doing some research, making a presentation, or maybe trying to change something in a local ordinance or a state law. So civic engagement involves especially that change focus. And then, of course, service learning. 4-H, of course, is just incredible in terms of encouraging the generosity, giving back of our young people, and volunteering. And we can talk about, of course, the difference between just community service and then service learning that has that focus on actual objectives and reflection. And if you'd like to visit more about that, or if folks maybe are looking for resources that will help groups move more in the direction of true service learning, we certainly love to chat more. So just mostly wanted to kind of touch base on those 4 pillars of civic engagement, and to hopefully help see how the things that we're doing fit into those while they contribute to that bigger picture. So here's kind of one more way to break down civic engagement, and I'll just kind of let you see that. But it's really about connecting, providing those learning opportunities, but then actual opportunities to engage with people in political office or in leadership positions, maybe working for social justice. And then some of those more highly critical thinking based activities that we know are going to be valued in the workforce, but also in terms of young people being actively involved throughout their lives. The leadership piece, of course, is there, and ultimately a focus on how youth-led efforts and youth-adult partnerships can impact things, starting at the local level, but moving all the way up potentially to the global scale. So just a few key words, I think, that we can associate with civic engagement, and that we see also built into that definition from National 4-H Council. So what we've done really over the last several months here and in conversations with some of you and around the state to try to begin to look at what 4-H does and offers in this area of civic engagement, and where are there gaps, maybe where are there opportunities. And this mind map to the right, it's very small. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's just really a visual of a lot of things that are going on that relate to civic engagement. But I think one thing, hopefully, that we could all agree on is that our young people, really, every young person is deserving of experiences in civic engagement to develop some of these skills and to walk out of the program at the end of their 4-H career knowing how to do stuff and being confident in that. And so I think maybe a kind of suggested goal for going forward would be to have some things in place that ensures every youth at every level of 4-H and every year is able to pick up these civic engagement skills, etiquette, and ways to contribute. So on that note, that was kind of what guided the development of this resource that I'd like to introduce you to this morning and give you a chance to consider how it might be useful in your areas. and to give you a chance also to peer review and to be a part of this process that we hope will then put something in place that can be used going forward. So it's the 4-H Civic Engagement Skills Guide, and if you're familiar with the Health Officers Guide that is out there, I think it is linked under the resources and forums. That's a piece. The Health Officer Guide is a piece that I think 4-H borrowed from another state with permission, but kind of provided some activities for a new club officer, a health officer, to lead kind of month by month, to insert that healthy living message, and to offer some challenges to clubs or to groups, just to kind of keep that mission mandate, in front of them. And our club here in Boone County has utilized that health officer guide, and I was very impressed, month by month, meeting by meeting, how one of those table officers would have a challenge. It might be related to choosing healthy snacks. It might be related to, exercising or stretching exercises, but then would come back, the next month with that kind of challenge and find out who did what. And I could see that the club was enjoying it and benefiting from it. So in setting this up, we wanted to kind of follow a similar approach, a tool that we could put in the hands of our 4-H volunteers, older youth, perhaps staff in certain situations if it's a special program. But we wanted to zero in on things that every 4-H'er can learn, master, and pass on to others. Certainly not an exhaustive list, but some things hopefully to get started. And so what we have are 13 activities for clubs in school or after school programs, SPIN, and also 4-H councils. So thinking about those groups that come together on the county basis that might also be interested in this. Each activity is about 15 to 20 minutes each. They certainly could be stretched, but we wanted to keep them doable within a meeting agenda, and ensure they could fit inside that club or council meeting, or perhaps be woven together into a larger program or a multi-session program, perhaps even as a SPIN. So that's the idea. There are activities in the skill guide ranging from Clover Kid level all the way up to teens and older youth. These could be activities that are used with traditional 4-H'ers that we already work with, and have for a number of years, or those non-traditional 4-H'ers who are coming to our programs for the first time. Activities could be led by 4-H staff or adult volunteers, but I really want to emphasize or older youth, because I think hopefully this is a resource that could be put in the hands of that club leader, that SPIN club leader, working with teens or older youth to both facilitate the activities and therefore develop some of those leadership skills that teach to others piece that we were talking about at the top of the hour. And then each activity includes a Your Civic challenge as a take-home activity or something that can bridge from one meeting to the next. So there's sort of that continuity, and they can come back to it, and it's more than just something they do in the meeting room. So if you're ready, let's dive in. I'd like to try to show you a little bit of how the resource guide is put together. If you're interested in perusing a couple of the activities, and then we'll go on to talk about, kind of piloting and how you might see it fitting, and then also, some additional resources related to civic engagement. I think this is a picture of maybe what's called the offsets near Fredericktown, which I understand. I'm not sure if jumping is allowed any longer, but it's a fun shot either way. All right, so I'm going to try to pull up and share with you then the guide itself, and I'm going to go back to the chat here and let me just see if folks are seeing now a screen that has a picture of 3 lovely 4-H'ers during a meeting, and a flag, and 4-H Civic Engagement. Is that coming up for you okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I can zoom in or zoom out. It's hard to say, what's going to be the right size, but again, this resource will be available to you, right after the meeting, and you can certainly look in more detail. So it's been beautifully designed by our HES designer, Levi Sherman. It's terrific to work with. you can see in the first portion, we just addressed that question for folks, again, who might be new. What is civic engagement? How does 4-H prepare youth for it? Why is this guide in existence, and who can use it? Again, with that focus on adult leaders leading younger members, or working with them to lead the activities. So it could be a vice president or a parliamentarian, but it could look different ways based upon the delivery mode you're working with. The activities do hit upon all of the 4-H's. So we're trying to, again, address the whole clover. And I'm going to come back to this screen in just a minute, but I want to show you that we've built in a page related to the thriving model, 4-H's new framework for positive youth development, and hopefully getting folks just a little more familiar with that, including our longtime leaders and our new leaders, and addressing things like sparks and program quality, and how what they do at that point of service, contributes to that trajectory of youth thriving. For those of you who are targeting life skill fans, and I'm sure there are a lot of us still out there who remember or used and still use the targeting life skills model, we've also built that in. The diagram itself is very small because we didn't want to overemphasize it, but we do want to maybe help make connections between the activities and those targeting life skills, if that assists with evaluation, or just, again, something that folks are more familiar with. So let's go back to this first page then, and I know it's you're just waiting with bated breath here. What are those activities? What are those lessons, right? So here they are: practicing flag etiquette, name tags and lapel pins, how to read legislation and state statutes, how to write to a legislator, and that could be a county commissioner. It really could be any elected official. How to make a motion. How to write a thank you note, how to identify and distinguish between different levels of government, introductions and handshakes, everybody's favorite. And then thrown in, I think for good measure, and because we're coming up on, the bicentennial here, we reached out to the Secretary of State's office and asked for permission to include some photos and information about Missouri state symbols. And so it might be an opportunity to, kind of bring groups back to that. I know they are exposed to that in school, but there could be some interesting connections through 4-H. We've got the pillars of character built into an activity there. And of course, with our emphasis on diversity and inclusion and growing the program, there's a really fun kind of group challenge sheet on diversity and culture that we may want to take a look at in a moment. Identifying community assets and opportunities, so how to think about your community in new ways and see new possibilities, and how to link those back to maybe service learning or projects that your club is doing, or maybe what you want to do in order to maybe move change. And then practicing civility. There are some resources available through National 4-H Council and its partners on this topic of how to help kids learn how to agree to disagree, to maintain respect, to talk through conflict. And so we wanted to at least build in some references there. There's certainly more that groups could look at beyond what's in the toolkit. But I also wanted to just focus in on the levels and on the focus areas. So in working with Ty and Laura and Sherry and the team here, that we're beginning to try to look at some of our projects and our curriculum, and look at how to update those going forward. It looks like things are moving in a direction where it might be more based upon skill levels rather than just age groups. And I think some of you have been probably seeing that and recommending that for years. And we'd really appreciate your input on that. But I think what Ty and Laura envision are curriculum updates that aren't just necessarily grade or age based, but recognize that a young person may already be very advanced in their knowledge and in their skills. And then you may have somebody brand new to it who's back at more the novice level. So under the levels there, the way we've categorized them, of course, are Clover kids and up. So for those youngest, that first level would be novice. typically what have been, like our 8 to 10-year-olds, intermediates, 11 to 13, and then experts, 14 and up. But again, not holding to those age categories specifically. And then there's another one that Ty has added on as a junior leader and up. So if that young person has all that knowledge and they are ready, that junior leader level could be one. So we wanted to try to set this up according to those levels and kind of give you a chance to think about that, and maybe in some of the feedback, let us know how you think that works. Also, the 4 pillars of civic engagement or focus area, you can see we have coded here. So leadership, civic ed, service, and community engagement. And so for each activity, we've tried to break down then which focus area does that address, and what level does that activity or that topic kind of come under. So for flag etiquette, there's at least some part of that activity that we could do with Clover kids, and certainly older. Whereas maybe writing to a legislator, we're more into the intermediate level there. So just wanted to kind of explain that, and also point out this your civic challenge. So each activity has, again, that bridging piece at the end that can carry forward into a next meeting, and there are some questions for reflection to kind of dive deeper if folks would like to do that. All right, so that's kind of a little bit of the way the guide is put together. Now, I want to turn over to you and see, what are you interested in seeing? If there is one of those topics or activities you'd like to glance at, feel free and type it in the chat pod, and we can just peruse through this a bit, and then we'll move on to kind of next steps and some discussion and resource opportunities. So anybody got one of those topics that you'd like to see now? Okay, and we can just perhaps show you a couple as we go here. I'll go to maybe name tags and lapel pins as one example, and this is something that kind of been observed in different settings, that whenever 4-Hers are making a presentation or at an event where it's required more of a formal dress and attire, there's always been that question of where do I put my name tag, where do I put my lapel pin, on which, and even adults I know can have some disagreements on that. So we thought, well, let's investigate this and try to provide some answers. So in this activity, it introduces the correct placement of name tags and lapel pins. And you can see the supplies needed are really very basic. A dress shirt would be great, don't have to. Name tag could be a stick-on name tag. Really any 4-H pin or other lapel pin. And then there's a handout. So it provides a situation. So you're about to attend a 4-H scholarship banquet and make a good impression. Need to know on which side of your jacket, the lapel or shirt, to place your name tag. So of course, walks folks through the directions of how to do that activity. On the next page, then, there is sort of this leader resource for that youth or that adult leader. And of course, the correct placement would be to have your lapel pin on your left lapel or near your heart, where it shows your loyalty, and then the name tag on the right side, where presumably when you shake right hand with another person, they're going to be able to directly see your name tag. So hopefully, and I'm guessing some of you have done this or used this, but hopefully this is an example of the kind of activity that older 4-Hers could learn, master, share with others in kind of a fun setting, and then everybody goes away feeling like, hey, I learned something kind of useful today. And then at the bottom here is the civic challenge, where then the group can be encouraged to, over the course of the month or between sessions, notice where other people are wearing lapel pins and name tags, and maybe come back and share what you observed, and was it done correctly, or was there some variation, and why do you think that was? Are there certain careers that you think would need to wear a name tag or lapel pin, and why? So sometimes there can be a career link made back on some of these activities. Okay, so that's kind of an example. And as you can see, there's of course the kind of the curriculum with the instructions for that activity leader, and then also often a worksheet or a handout either for that facilitator or for the group. Let me go to the, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Forward. We're not seeing your screen. All we see is launching.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get back up then. Okay, find. Oh, so when it says launching, is it trying to pull up, Patty, or is it just not, you're just seeing a different screen?
I'm just seeing the meeting topic, host, URL.
Okay. Here we are.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, thank you.
Great.
That might help in maybe, yeah, picking an activity or two folks would like to look at. I was going to go to the diversity and culture one next. Is that all right? Would you like to see something different? Again, just send a chat and we'll go there next. But I just want to mainly, give you a look at what we have here, and hear back on how perhaps you see this fitting in, and then have some discussion about how these resources may link up with things that you're doing. So the Engaging Diversity and Culture one is a kind of a puzzle that comes from, I want to say, like a Penn State resource. And it's a puzzle for group members to solve, introducing different ways of thinking about and appreciating diversity. So it's a connect the dots activity, and they get the sheet and they have to figure out how to connect all the dots on the sheet in just 4 lines. And it's a bit daunting, a bit of a challenge. Without the answer, it's a little bit of a conundrum. But they can puzzle over that for a little bit. Some will get it, some will not. But then that sets up that discussion about that we don't all think in the same ways, that often we may need a different way of coming at a topic. We need different perspectives, and just, again, emphasizing the value in diversity. So at the bottom of the Connect the Dots sheet is then an opportunity for reflection, thinking about thinking of how we're different, challenges and opportunities, and how those can be a strength for the group. Also, then, that civic challenge is challenging them to learn about a new culture that may be just down the street or across the world, and then coming back to perhaps provide a brief description for their fellow group members. So that's another example of the resource. Let me just see if folks have other ones they would like to glance at here. Okay. Make a motion. Okay, I saw that one come out just a moment ago. And I'm going to, again, make sure that you're seeing this, because I don't know sometimes when I switch screens if that's taking it off for you, but we're going to reshare the guide. And then after this one, we'll go back to PowerPoint. So we're back to the guide, and making a motion is on page 15. There we are. Okay, so in this activity, learn how to make a motion during a 4-H club meeting using proper parliamentary procedure. And of course, I know a lot of our groups probably use motion potion as a really fun food ingredient based activity. Our club at our monthly club meeting last night just did motion potion, and they managed to keep the tuna out of the mix, and but some hot tamales made it in, which made, I think it wound up being, I think, 3 different amendments at one point, but great way to learn the process. Here we have copies of a script, and I think this one, as you can see, is for novices and up. So again, this might be a newer skill, especially for newer 4-Hers or those in a spin club who are picking this up for the first time. We can see that, of course, there's the task. You're at your first 4-H meeting, want to make a motion, but want to know the correct steps. Walks the facilitator through the directions, and provides some discussion questions. Then at the end, there is that civic challenge of making a motion at the next meeting. How did it go? And then here's just a basic script that 3 people can walk through or role play to demonstrate that. And of course, there's flexibility, so that facilitator could build upon what is here to spend more time on that, or to link in some other activities that make sense. But again, we wanted to just provide a kind of a basic center line for where appropriate, and recognizing that, again, these are some key things that we hope every 4-H'er knows how to do. Okay, so hopefully that's maybe about enough to see the guide and kind of give you a sense of what is there. Would certainly welcome any thoughts or discussion on other skills or etiquette related things that would apply to everyone. So I want to emphasize that this is not a finished resource by any stretch, but again, hopefully packages some things that that can be useful in the present. Let me go back to my slides here, and we will kind of nudge ever slightly forward. Okay, so hopefully we were here with the cliff jumper last time. And so here's what we're thinking. To pilot this skills guide with any 4-H groups that might be interested this spring. And certainly there'd be opportunities beyond, but if clubs are interested or looking for some fresh material right away, we want to make it accessible. I envision, kind of setting up a quick kind of Qualtrics online survey to receive some feedback from faculty, staff, club leaders by June 1st, in order to, collect sort of some initial things, get your thoughts. And then, really hear what's useful, what's relevant, what to keep, what to change. Are there other activities or subjects that we could possibly include or cover? And if not, perhaps in this first guide, maybe it's a 2.0 or a part 2, down the road. So the way to make it accessible, I think, would be through a box folder. And I have a box folder set up for that with a link. And the idea would be then to, with the reviewed comments and so forth, to have a final version, web ready for rollout in 2020-21 or by October. But again, I'm thinking that clubs and groups could get some use out of this right now if you see it fitting. So we'll come back to that in just a moment, but wanted to also just kind of connect about 4-H spin clubs. And I think going off of conversations I've had with a number of you around the state, there's interest in, so in some cases, spin clubs that are specifically around civic engagement or a civic engagement topic. There's also interest in maybe how to build in a civic engagement component to spin clubs that you might be doing, or that you've got leaders that are doing. So just wanted to have a chance for folks to discuss that, or identify specifically what could be most useful. I think in visiting with our region, we're trying to all get on the same page about spin clubs and make sure we understand the delivery model and how it's supposed to work. I think, again, coming back to, it's really set up for those kids who are new to 4-H, who might be having that experience for the first time, versus just an avenue for current 4-Hers to do a project. Those local adults who are passionate about a topic or an activity and would be quick to say yes to, yeah, I can. I think I had a conversation with a specialist the other day who has some teen girls who want to do a spa-based spin club and are working under the guidance of an approved 4-H leader. So it seems like a lot of the examples that you all have, and from Illinois that we've learned a lot from, there's a lot of sort of newness and appeal to the spin club topics that seem to depart sometimes from what we would say are traditional 4-H project areas. But I think that's a part of it, is to make it attractive, make it appealing, and then build in that sneaky learning. I think one thing that we've been talking about in our region is just that opportunity to possibly link up episodic experts with a 4-H volunteer or staff member and to plot out those 6 hours. So perhaps instead of necessarily having to have every spin club with a different approved 4-H volunteer that runs through the whole process, perhaps is there a way to, under the guidance of an approved volunteer, find those episodic volunteers or experts who just want to do their thing, and to then have the risk management and coverage by that approved volunteer who is there on site the whole time. So just kind of putting that out as a possibility, as a way to think about how it could be structured. And then spin clubs being well designed, but not necessarily requiring a juried 4-H curriculum. So I think in some cases we felt that it needs to be based on something from the 4-H mall, but clearly it seems like the direction from the states that we're following is as long as we're using those principles, there does not need to be a core curriculum, that is covered during those spin clubs. So just wanted to, mention a few things from conversations I've been in recently, and just see perhaps if folks have any questions or comments or thoughts on spin clubs this morning before we kind of connect this back to civic engagement. If you do, feel free and add to the chat, or go ahead and grab the mic. I think we're small enough group that we could do it that way. Okay, well, so want to then kind of move forward, and I'll keep watching in case you're working on a question or comment. But in terms of then 4-H spin clubs and civic engagement, what might be some possibilities? What might be some resources? And here are just a few. And again, I'm going to try to give you access to a box folder that's got a lot of things that could be pulled from or shared with a local leader that wants to go this route. In terms of video games, if we've got kids that enjoy video games and simulations, the icivics.org site is a high recommend. And this has simulations that relate to mostly federal government, the judicial, the executive, and the legislative branch. There are a few that relate more to the state and even, I think, a couple county or municipal kinds of things. So looking for that kind of play-based or game-based activity or lesson, iCivics, great site. Field trips or tours. So I've had some conversations with, I think, a couple of specialists who, are either building or are working on courthouse tours, good government days. I know the program that's been done here in Boone County is a pretty phenomenal day, packed full with not only the courthouse tour, but going out to public works. 4-Hers get to sit on some of this equipment, that's maintains roads and connect with the people. There was some discussion of bridge surveying and inventorying, and one of the public works fellows, I think, made the connection back to 4-H robotics and kind of said if 4-Hers could design a drone that could fly underneath a bridge and point upward, we could perhaps investigate some of our bridges without having to crawl through all that poison ivy. So it really kind of opened the door to like, wow, how could maybe some of our 4-H project groups apply what they're doing toward a municipal or a county project, that would bring value directly back to something right there. The sheriff and the jail tour, the 911 dispatch center, of course, are also pretty amazing to just see and tour, and open eyes to not only, again, how government works, but also what are careers that are right there down the street. It could be accountancy, it could be human resource management, other kinds of professions or careers that maybe young people don't yet know are right there within their local area. State Capitol tours. If any of you are interested in, designing just a small group tour of the Capitol, we've put together some resources of hotspots to visit, places to see, how you could pack that into half a day. The State Historical Library is really eager for 4-H groups to visit more and learn what resources are available there, just down the street from the Capitol. And the Center for Missouri Studies just opened here across the street from Shakespeare's Pizza and Peace Park, and is a pretty phenomenal facility for doing some research on family names, community history. Often has special programs. So field trips, perhaps, if that seems to fit into a spin club package, is certainly a possibility. We are working on some resources related to civic education, and specifically the test that every Missouri high school student has to pass now. And that's going to take the shape of kind of a Kahoot smartphone team trivia challenge, so that basically 4-H groups can kind of have almost like a quiz bowl using Kahoot on those questions about citizenship and naturalization that they will face when they take that test. And so it's just perhaps a way, that we can support their learning in that area, while again, a fun-based format. So if you're interested in that, that's going to be, available probably not too much longer into this semester. And then finally, I think, again, the bicentennial coming up August 2021 offers some great opportunities to think about spin clubs. We've got that quilt project underway. I know there's the square dancing initiative. It's maybe an opportunity. Some counties have an oral history project that they've done with projects coming all the way to the state fair. Could be a time to do interviews and capture stories from some of our old timers. Maybe it's a time capsule, researching family names, family farms, and collecting and donating artifacts to the State Historical Archives. So one of the meetings with Michael Sweeney from the Missouri Historical Society mentioned just that there are some 4-H artifacts on file in that state archive, but really there's not a lot, and there are a lot of pieces that are missing. So if you have a club or a countywide group that might be interested in that process, it's a pretty simple process, but you could kind of make a permanent mark for your county 4-H program, by arranging for certain items, records, photos, even projects, to be donated to the archive. So just wanted to mention a few of those things in passing. We've certainly got some time going forward into the bicentennial. So kind of bringing this to a landing. If you're interested in the resource guide or making that available to your leaders, we have tried to provide a way to do that, again, via box. So if you'd like, please just send me an email. Let me know that. I will make sure that you've got the permissions, and that here's the link to the box folder itself. And so this guide will be there to download the pilot version. And then we will have that brief online survey by June 1st, just to collect a little bit of feedback from folks. And I will mention that everyone who kind of serves as that reviewer, provides some feedback, we will include those credits in the final guide. So again, for folks who are thinking about curriculum vitae and resumes and things of that nature, if we can provide a line item with this, we want to do that. Let's see, the other piece I just wanted to share is that there are many other resources for spin clubs, not only on this topic, but also on service learning, youth adult partnerships, civic engagement, that are in this same box folder. So if that's of interest to you, whether it's related to spin or just other things you're doing, we're again just trying to improve access. And the S drive, the shared drive, is pretty burdened these days. So this might be a way to work around that. So I think for the most part, that's everything that I had this morning. I did want to just ask, again, if there are questions or items that you'd like to discuss further, would welcome it. Curious if folks see any golden opportunities to use the skills guide with your 4-H groups. any opportunities related to civic engagement that you see that perhaps we could help you address? And are there any tools or resources that you might be looking for that we can hopefully source? So just wanted to put it back out there and see what folks might have today. I know you're busy, and we are coming up to the top of the hour, but please let me know with a chat right now, or I can certainly visit with you by phone or email beyond the session. All right. Well, with that then, again, kind of coming back to the original and trying to understand where we fit and what we know how to do and what value that has. I think we all can see that 4-H is a place for young people where it can all come together, where it really all does come together. Those things they like, things that they discover they're good at, also are useful in their clubs, in their communities, their country and world. And it's, I think, again, a golden opportunity to be a part of that discovery and support that development. So I thank you for, again, sitting in this morning. And again, I know it's a busy season, so I hope everything is going as well as possible for you. Again, if you've got questions on either the guide today or civic engagement in general, I'm here for you. So thank you for what you do. And it looks like we're going to finish up just a minute shy of the top of the hour. So I guess if it looks like Eric's time slot maybe had 90 minutes down, but 30 minutes back on your schedule, hopefully. So I'm going to go ahead and hang on here in case anyone would like to stick around for some further discussion. But otherwise, that's what we've got today. And thank you again, everybody, for what you do. And we will look forward to catching up soon. Bye-bye now.